How beautiful is this chard? Sunshine, birdsong, time spent in the garden. What else does the soul need? I've come outside to harvest a few vegetables because we've been promised a couple of hours of good weather, and it definitely is glorious at the moment, so early in the morning, but then the rains are supposed to return. So I just want to make sure I have a good bunch of vegetables ready in the kitchen, and I can then be preparing these vegetables and do more cooking and maybe even batch cooking during the rainy hours of the day. And overall, yeah, just try to get myself a little bit more organized for the next busy work week ahead. And I always have to fill you in what's been happening, as I've been missing now from the screens for exactly a month. So I'll fill you in with that as well. But otherwise, at the moment, just get as much harvested as I can while the sun is just so glorious out here. The growing season is coming to an end, and what's to harvest is reducing by the week. Now at the moment I still have the beetroot here, and I'm taking a few kohlrabis as well, and there's a couple of turnips. There's some absolute beauties in here, but others haven't really grown that big yet. But luckily I have plenty of chard still here, and then obviously the whole glorious row of the Brussels sprouts, and I'll probably take a couple of the rosettes from the tops of some of them as well at the moment. So this was a really good harvest for early November. The potatoes, the amount of potatoes I dug up is going to last us for 2 weeks for sure. But the carrots and the larger beetroot, especially some of the carrots that were probably past their best before date, they are going to go into juicing. So I'm just going to cut out the better bits of it and they can all go into juicing. And then the rest is all like roasting and just having a bigger dinner, especially Sunday dinners. And there's definitely still a few weeks left before the frosts actually start coming in. So I have a couple of weeks more to physically harvest out here and not to having to worry about like the beetroot and chard and turnips that are still on the field. I definitely don't have to worry about the Brussels sprouts or the carrots because they're well looked after, and there's actually parsnips as well next to the carrots. And then probably have to start gathering up my potato pots and storing them away from rain. Even now I should really be starting to do that, but some of the potato pots are holding down the plastic at the moment for me to keep the grass from creeping in too much into the field bed. So I have to find a different solution for that, so I could take those pots into storage and keep the potatoes fresh for us to harvest then over the actual winter months. But what has been the reason of my absence over the last couple of weeks, and it's actually really simple. It's just a mix of a couple of things. One is that the end of the year is a season of a few of family birthdays, and one is my husband's and one is our son's, and they're different weeks, so each, if you celebrate them, they each take up a day out of a weekend. But also it was the combination of poor weather conditions, and then my parents came to visit us and they stayed over sort of a week and a half as well. So again, there was like 2 weekends nearly part of their stay, so there was no gardening at all done during those days when there were celebrations, and then when we had the visitors. But those couple of moments that I have been able to get myself out into the garden and just spend a bit of time, which is just so important at this time of the year, especially when you go to work nearly in dark and then you come home in dark. So, and I will also throw in there the overall like feeling of overwhelm, that once you've skipped a couple of weeks of gardening and the jobs start to sort of stack up a bit, and then you do get that opportunity to come and do something, it just nearly knocks you back a bit, because it makes it so hard to decide, okay, what should I be actually doing? Because everything needs to be done. And what are those distinct jobs that I will do this time? So the feeling of overwhelm can definitely hinder any kind of progress you want to be making. Let it be in the garden, inside the house, at work, anywhere. It's always there, lurking in the shadows, that feeling of overwhelm and not sure where to start. But once usually you sort of start with something, even those little jobs and little wins, it sort of just has a bit of a snowball effect, and you will gain your momentum again and get some jobs done. But then the weather, the rain, that has been relentless. I really feel this year should have been one of the years that we would have gone for some sun holiday. It has not been that motivating to be constantly in rain and wet conditions. And obviously I know we're in southwest of Ireland, so we do tend to get more rain than, let's say, the east coast of Ireland, but it plays tricks with your mind as well, so you do have to look after that. So whenever it's been any bit sunny and it's been a day off, we really have tried to make sure that we do get as much sunshine as possible. But one of the jobs that I did get to finish last week was to clear up and clean the sweetcorn bed. And it wasn't just the taking away the old stalks of the sweetcorn, it was also getting rid of any of the spent foliage of the summer squashes. And then there was weeds. I have a lot of young nettles popping up, and then just a lot of weeds that have been just growing quite happily there under the leaves of those plants. And I had to just get in there and just weed and weed and weed. Now the hens definitely have still mixed the wood chips and soil up a lot in these areas, and there's nothing really I can do about it until they'll be confined a little bit now, because we've had a bird flu warnings, and the mandatory housing order is going to come into effect as well shortly now. So at the moment, yeah, I don't worry too much about having the wood chip and soil all mixed up, but at least getting some of these areas weeded and letting them to still peck through and dig around in other areas. But I also wanted to get my garlic planted, and this year or over the winter and then obviously up to summer next year, they're going to be growing in those squared tall raised beds, which at the moment still have sort of, again, weeds. They needed to be weeded, but also those Greek Gigantes beans in there, so they have to be cleared away. Now, I did not take out their root systems because last year I grew them in those same spots, and this spring they came up from those same rootstocks, and I didn't have to actually re-sow them, replant them. So I'm hoping that perhaps next spring they'll come back again if we don't get an extremely harsh winter. And the harvest actually out of them have been lovely. And the butterbean itself, or the Greek, that's what it is really. It's just a large butterbean. They are just delicious. I've really started to become a huge fan of butter beans over these last couple of months. I've been adding them more and more into our own cooking, and to be able to grow them like that, especially those large ones, they're so meaty and they're so delicious. There's a lovely flavour about them. I'm getting more sort of intrigued, and even to the point of thinking maybe next year I'm going to emphasize way more of those beans rather than like my typical scarlet runner beans that I would grow for pods. But I just don't want to cross-pollinate the Greek Gigantea and scarlet, so that's another story. But the garlic that I am planting this autumn is the same what I harvested this summer, and this is something that I've continually been doing for a couple of years. So only once I bought the original seeds or the bulbs, the cloves of garlic. I grew them, and then I kept the best bulbs, the biggest, the strongest, healthiest looking bulbs, and then replanted every autumn. So I think now this is going to be at least third or fourth season, and I'm growing two types of hardneck, which should have been soft necks, but they're definitely not, because every year they grow the scapes, which is the flowering stalk, and soft necks don't create that, and then the elephant garlic as well. So once I have the area weeded, I just make holes with the dibber I usually add in a little bit of fresh compost to the very bottom, then fish blood and bone, seaweed granules if I have them, and then I would just cover it up again with a bit of fresh compost, and that's that. There's nothing else complicated about them. Obviously, if you could mulch them or maybe even add a bit more green manure on the very surface of it, something that the actual cold winter weather would kill off anyway, but would keep it as a mulch on the surface, that would be extra bonus again. But I'm not doing it. I'll definitely still I'm going to mulch them with fresh compost in spring, but not in the autumn now, not at this time. We'll see what weather the winter will bring us. And one of the biggest wins for myself, mentally at least, was that I finally finished the planting of the green roof over Hen's Run roof. And that was just something I had done a bit, then put it off because there was something more exciting to be done in the garden, and then bad weather, and again it was one of those that really jobs that felt like a chore. I didn't feel any excitement about it because I knew that it was going to be physically really challenging. It's never easy to be climbing up and down the ladder with soil, either clumps of plants in your hand or just buckets of soil, up and down the ladder, onto the roof, walk around the roof, come down again. It's quite taxing on the body. So I wasn't looking forward to doing that job, but at the same time knowing that it had to be done. It was just one of those jobs that had to be done before I could probably move on to other areas again, because it was just a job I had started and never finished, and that never feels good inside of it, doesn't it? The unfinished jobs are never mood boosting, are they? So at least that was something I pushed myself through. It was a rainy day. Well, it didn't start off that rainy, but it finished off rainy, so I couldn't even film it because I didn't want to get my phone and the gear wet. But I pushed myself through and I have that side done. It's a massive tick up there as well. But I'm thinking, let's go into the greenhouse now, do a little bit of seed sowing and see what else we could be doing while the weather is still good like this. Now this space here, as usual, is going to become my winter season sanctuary. I usually spend a lot of time here very early in the season, between winter spring as well. But a couple of weeks ago I started to notice that somebody else is trying to make this space very comfortable for themselves. I could see a lot of burrowing, a lot of digging, a little bit too much to my liking, and previously none of the shrews or mice or even rats have been trying to get into the greenhouse space. But for some reason this season there has been a lot more sightings of shrews and mice in the garden by me. And I was guessing that it's going to be one of them that's doing all the burrowing inside here as well. So I set up a couple of live traps. I used peanut butter as bait, and over the next 2 nights I was actually able to capture 2 of the mice that definitely have been the ones that were burrowing around the place here. And I relocated them quite far away from the house, so because they're live traps, they're very easy to release the mice out as well. Now both looked quite sorry for themselves because they looked wet, but it was actually the peanut butter oil that they were able to get all over themselves. But yeah, so I was able to capture 2 of them live, and then for a couple of nights it was nice and quiet and no more burrowing, and last night somebody else has been here. So I've reset the trap, and again, if I capture something they'll be relocated. It's the easiest way to do it. But let's come to our sowing. So what I want to do overall is start reducing my open seed packets, because even for next season I'm thinking that I'm going to be reducing the amount of different vegetables that I'm going to be sowing, and if not the actual type of vegetables, it's more going to be the varieties. I'm going to reduce the amount of seeds I'm going to be buying because I find seeds so expensive. And I still have a lot of semi-used seed, some where the dates are not as fresh as the others. And I'd say I'm going to become a little bit more selective of what my seed sowing is going to be for next season. So I want to just start. There's a couple of lettuces here. There's a mustard here, a chicory, pak choys, and they might not come to anything at all. I know the time of the year is not beneficial for any seed sowing anyway, but I'm here undercover. The temperature outside is still warmish. We're not getting frosts for the next couple of weeks at least. So even if I could get like baby leaves out of some of them, that would be a win for me. So I'm going to sow them liberally just on a tray like that. I'm going to be filling it with fresh compost. I'm going to mix all the seed on the top surface, sprinkle very lightly with compost again, and then I'm going to take, and obviously I have to water it, and then I'm going to take it into the house to germinate. And the moment they're germinated, I'm going to bring them back here into the greenhouse. And if that works, I'm going to continue doing that every week, 2 weeks at least. So I'm going to be reducing all these open packets, and especially varieties that I really don't want to be growing in the future anyway, and just reduce them and sow them. If they grow, they grow. And one of the biggest enjoyments I get from the gardening jobs is not just doing the job itself, is when I immerse myself in something else. Let's say on days when the neighborhood dogs are barking a bit, like they are today, I put my headphones on and I listen to music or listen to podcasts. And one of the podcasts I'm really thoroughly enjoying is listening to Claire and Kerry on So Chatty. So if you haven't listened to their gardening podcast, do check them out. It's such a good, relaxing, but at the same time even interesting and informative as well. So it's really chill. I'm really enjoying that, and I leave the link in the description of the video below. That's as much as we got into today's video. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully the gap between the next video after this one and the ongoing ones is not going to be as long as what the October break was. So thanks a million for that, and we'll see you next time.